Hi folks. Yesterday I discussed about how to hold the accordion, some bellows techniques, hand position. I had some questions about knowing where the notes are because I don't look at the notes. And so my only advice to you would be to get a chart of your keyboard, whether it's a BC or a C sharp D or whatever tuning that you have on your accordion, and learn those notes, learn those buttons. On the BC, it's fairly straightforward. On the push, you have C, G, C, G, C, G, C, G, all the way down. F, A, B, D, F, A, B, D, F, A, B on the pull. And if you learn the inside row, basic inside row, where those notes are, that's going to help you a lot to do that. Like learning keyboard on a computer, it's just a matter of practicing it and to learn it. So today I thought I would go a little bit more in depth with certain things. I talked about sliding technique and fingering, and I showed you the D scale of the accordion. But there's lots of different things you can do when you want to move up and down the keyboard. So a lot of times I would do, as an example, I'm not going to play any particular tune, but where you switch your finger like that as you're playing the note. Of course, some of these notes could be shorter or longer. We're dealing with fractions of a second, so timing is critical. So a lot of times I would switch, going up the keyboard, bring my third finger, and that would move my hand position up. So, okay, or so it'd be something like that. It's very hard to go in depth with something like this on video without actually having a student in front of me and showing them a particular tune or a particular movement on any given tune. But there are, just those basic concepts. Again, the sliding, So if I'm going from E to F sharp, a lot of times I will slide. Very rarely will I use two fingers because I'm moving down the keyboard, and so you want to utilize your fingers as best you can so that when you get up here, of course the other thing is I use my pinky a lot. A lot of players don't even use their pinky, but I think it's, so little movement like that. So you can move up and down the keyboard, but I mean, you have it, why not use it? So as best you can. And I don't use it all the time up here, but predominantly I do. Again, the bellows control. So we talk about why the accordion moves around a lot. When you're over exerting, when you're pushing too hard here and then pushing hard here. So obviously the harder you push here, the harder you push back here to stop the accordion. And so what I try and do is give you an understanding of what's going on. If you're not completely coordinated as you're pushing a button and you're pushing the bellows, if that's not together, obviously if you push, there's no air going through the reed and there's nowhere for anything to go, so you have what I call force on force this way. And so you want to eliminate as much of that as possible. So that's why it's really critical when you're learning tunes to play each note and take your time and make sure that your left and right hand are completely coordinated, so you don't have that issue of force on force, which makes you push harder here. The harder you push here, the tighter all these ligaments and tendons get in here. Well, I thought I might do a tune that I teach to a lot of my students. It's a great little tune called The Pretty Girls of Mayo. and I'm going to play the tune slow so that you can pay attention to it, and I'm going to pull closer so that way you can get to see my fingering a little better. So a nice close-up of my fingering, and here we are. So I do a switch right there already. So I did a switch there. I brought my first finger down, going down the keyboard. So I slide here, slide, Let's talk a minute about some of those rolls and triplets that I did. So that's a very basic little triplet using your G. So it depends on what. So that sounds the best right there. Right? Another little triplet from the F sharp, E D. Of course, there's bellows in there, involved in there. I'll over exaggerate so you can see. So the important thing is that when you're doing your triplets and your rolls, now here's a roll. And when I do a roll, my rolls are always a triangle, right? So a little triangle of these keys here, right? So you always that little triangle. So if whatever the root note is, if it's a B or a G or D, it doesn't matter. It's always the same, and always the same fingering, generally speaking. So the important thing is that you have to lift your fingers. Okay, the mechanics of the instrument tell you that when you push the button, there's a valve that covers the reed, and that lifts up. Okay, and then when you lift your finger, it closes. It stops the air from going to the reed, stops the reed from vibrating. Okay, so it's very critical if you want crisp triplets or rolls to lift your fingers. You can do it slow, of course, but it's really important to hold the root note. So in any melody, the root note is the most important part. So in The Pretty Girls of Mayo, there's a roll on the D. So if you think about how I use my fingers and utilize my fingers, so I've got a slight curvature on my wrist. It's kind of hard to, I'm trying to get the camera. I've never done this before on camera. So there's a slight curvature, like I said, from here to here. Slight curvature on my wrist. My fingers are cupped, but I'm playing with not the very tip of my finger, but that portion of my finger there, right? So, and I'm lifting my fingers, and I'm treating my fingers almost like a hammerhead on a piano hitting the string, just kind of bouncing off the string. So if you got to have that, your fingers are able to maneuver like this, using those knuckles and the joints that you have, so you're not moving your wrist, right? You don't want to do it, right? So a lot of people will move their wrist up and down. So again, if you want to keep your hand parallel to the keyboard at a 90-degree angle as best you can, you hold your wrist like this. You don't let your wrist drop. See what happens to your hand. Okay. Now, again, I understand there's players that do things a lot differently. They do it this way and many other different ways. But this is my advice to you in general when we're painting with a broad brush, as we have to do with a video like this. So keep your hand at a 90-degree. Keep your wrist from twisting or bending. Okay, and this way in particular, coming back. So what happens is when you bend your finger or bend your wrist, it pulls your fingers away from the keyboard. Okay, so you really want to be over the keys and lift your fingers. Right? So if I'm using this as an example, that's what I'm doing. First middle finger out, like that. Okay, I don't know if that's a good example or not, but that's the best I can do. So you get that nice crisp sound, as my father would say, the 3 C's: clean, crisp, and clear. And then play the note, lift your finger, separate those notes, so you get a nice little separation in between those notes. So an example, good example for rolls is the old Grey Goose. I won't play the whole tune, but because these videos are take a long time to download. But just as an example, so that's another little triplet or cut, and I'm actually using these 2 fingers for that. Oh, sorry, this way. These 2 fingers. So I'm using the B, A. I'm on the B here. D, B. Little cut. And it allows me to move my hand up, right? A lot of times you hear kind of almost playing 2 notes together. And you got to practice. That's what I'm doing there, but it's quicker. I'm just doing A, B, A, right? Again, the roll with the same finger. Another C, E, the E on the outside row. Of course, this is for BC players. Again, that triplet there, I'm sliding and sliding back. So it's really critical anytime you're doing those rolls, the way I do them, you've got to hold the root note first at the beginning and at the end. You can hear the dominance of that. So even if you miss that little triplet in between those two root notes, it's not the end of the roll. You're not going to spoil the melody. Okay? So there's some elements there. And of course, again, you want to make sure that your bellows and right hand are coordinated so you don't get this push-pull, force on force, making you push harder here, which tightens everything up. And again, like I showed you yesterday, nice and relaxed left hand. So the other thing is, I know I play like this a little bit sometimes, but I've been playing for 50 years. But I think generally, if you start, you want to have your elbow not drop down, which kind of pulls the bellows down, but nice and straight. And if you just stop the accordion from falling like that, you'll get a bit better control. And once you gain more and more control, your left hand will relax, and you'll be able to kind of maneuver that bellows this way a little bit more. But initially, you want to try and keep everything as straight as possible there, so you get that, you know. So another exercise is, if you're having problems with your push-pull on your bellows, is just to so you don't, right? That's where you got the force, too much energy in your left hand. Again, let the bellows, the accordion, do the work. See that? So there's no pressure. I'm not exerting any major energy. Now for this example, I'm letting the weight of the accordion do all the notes on the pull. So you want to put your hand in, finger again, like I said yesterday in the other video, right across the top. Nice control of the air button. I have a slider, but even if you have a round button, I would still use my thumb this way and not in, like this. So if you think about the mechanics of your body, to push your thumb that straight across that way is actually a lot slower than going like that, sliding down against the note. So you slide on that little note, slide on the little air button, just like that, and that's what I do. Just a little clip. So you don't want to be depressing that air button all the way in, because the holes inside where the reeds are generally very big, and I think a lot of them are way too big. So just nice little quick flicks. And there's Jan, my wife Jan, in the background.
Going on a walk.
So
social distance walk.
Social distance walking going to happen. So let me go back to Pretty Girls of Mayo. So if you're learning this tune, my suggestion to you would be to take little phrases, something like that, and play it over and over and over. Get the fingering right. Oh, I have lost.
I lost him.
There we go. I don't know what happened there. I lost my screen. Anyway, So, and then learn that phrase, and then put the two together. So, if you've ever learned from me in the past, you know I'm very adamant about once you play something once, that you know it. And I think it's very critical as when we're learning tunes, that when we learn a phrase, that you've put it into your computer up here, you know it already. The problem is that we don't know that we know it. Or we have doubts or second thoughts, or you know, we let all this other stuff as adults in general get in the way of us learning to play tunes. So when you play something once, you know it, be confident about it, and be ready to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, and then just stop and correct it. Don't just keep going. Play the phrase, get it right, play the next phrase, get it right, put them both together. Then do another phrase, and build your tune that way. And as you're building your tune, you can learn the rhythm and the phrasing from the recording. So if you're doing, obviously the phrasing is not right, so, and nice and relaxed. Don't overplay. When you're learning, that's the time to do all these things, not when you're in a session. All right, I hope that helps. I went a little bit longer. Maybe I kind of went off a little bit on different things, but you know, your feedback is important, and I'm happy to do things. If you have any questions, anything else you'd like me to show you, I'm happy to respond to all of that. And I'll see you again. Okay, take care.